Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump has made his first overseas call as president to his old friend and Saudi Crown Prince MBS. It is a break from tradition. What does it say about Trump's priorities? We'll discuss that tonight. His administration is also making an outreach to India. Will Prime Minister Modi and President Trump meet next month? Will the Indian PM fly to Washington? What is New Delhi's strategy for Trump 2.0? Why two ships from China heading to Iran have raised concerns among weapons experts. Why Elon Musk is slamming an AI project backed by Trump and how this has triggered a public spat among tech titans. Why the US has deployed troops at the border to stop illegal immigration and decided to stop funding COVID-linked virus research. New wildfires in the West, record snowstorms in the South, and a government that is rolling back climate action. Here in Asia, how Pakistan is targeting the Indian army and exposing itself. Why the Earth's magnetic North Pole is shifting and what it means for you. And can an elephant have the rights of a person? We'll tell you about this debate. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. The UK warns Russian President Vladimir Putin, claims his spy ship passed through British waters. London says it was mapping critical underwater infrastructure. The UK says the Russian ship was first spotted in the waters in November. The Kremlin has declined to comment on the accusations. Argentina's President Javier Milei tears into the World Economic Forum in his address, accuses it of promoting, quote-unquote, the sinister agenda of wokeism, calls wokeism a cancer. Milei also defends Elon Musk, says his hand salute was an innocent gesture, blames the woke ideology for comparing it to a Nazi salute. More trouble for South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk Yeol. Investigators recommend that he be charged with insurrection and abuse of power. Yoon is under fire for declaring martial law on the 3rd of December last year. He was arrested in a raid last week. Nigeria hikes its mobile phone tariffs by 50%. This comes as the country battles one of its worst cost of living crises in decades. The telephone and data tariffs have remained the same since 2013. The telecommunications companies had wanted a 100% hike. Nigeria is Africa's fourth largest economy. And more than 250 schools in Thailand's capital are closed due to air pollution. Officials urge people in Bangkok to work from home and restrict the movement of heavy vehicles in the city. This morning, Bangkok was the 6th most polluted major city in the world. Trump diplomacy is truly underway. Donald Trump is ripping up tradition. He's charting his own path. His team held their first bilateral meeting with India, which is a clear break from tradition. And President Trump made his first phone call to Saudi Arabia. He spoke to Crown Prince MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. He's the one that Trump called first after taking charge as president. And this too is a break from tradition. Also a clear signal of Donald Trump's priorities as president. Interestingly, the White House has not reported this call, but the Saudi state media have. They say MBS promised a massive package for the US, an investment package worth around $600 billion. Let me put that in context. Saudi Arabia's GDP is $1.1 trillion, and they are investing 54% of that in the US. This will be done over the next 4 years. Chances are this is a quid pro quo, a return of favor. Remember, in his first term, Donald Trump broke tradition to visit Riyadh. Normally, US presidents visit allies or neighbors in their first trip. Bill Clinton, for instance, visited Canada. George Bush visited Mexico. Barack Obama also traveled to Canada, and Joe Biden visited the UK. But Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia. That was in the first term. Now he's back in office. So will he repeat that? Well, he has dropped a hint. He will go to Riyadh first, but on one condition. That Saudi Arabia announced investments in the US. That's his condition. Listen in.
So first foreign trip typically has been with UK, but I did it with Saudi Arabia last time because they agreed to buy $450 billion worth of our product. I said, I'll do it. If Saudi Arabia wanted to buy another 450 or 500, we'll up it for all the inflation.
Mr. President, you say you were going
think
to
I'd
end the
probably go
war.
Well, you have to hand it to the Saudis. Trump asked for $500 billion on Monday, and by Wednesday, Riyadh announces a $600 billion package. So the ball is now in Donald Trump's court. Let's see if he visits Riyadh again. Though for the moment, let's also look at the big picture. What does this phone call mean for US-Saudi ties? And what is Donald Trump hoping to achieve? For the kingdom, this is a big victory. The Biden presidency was not good for them. It weakened their ties to Washington. Joe Biden had promised to turn MBS into a pariah. He also stopped selling weapons to Riyadh. Of course, the campaign did not last. Rising energy prices forced Joe Biden to make a U-turn. With Trump, there is no such issue. He loves MBS and the Saudi royals. Just think back to the Jamal Khashoggi episode. He was a Saudi dissident, killed in the Saudi embassy in Turkey, reportedly on the orders of the Saudi prince. When the case came to light, every Western nation isolated the kingdom, but Donald Trump did not. Even when he left office, their relationship grew. The Saudis bailed out Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. They invested $2 billion in his firm to keep it afloat. The Trump Organization also has investments in Saudi Arabia. Last month, they announced a new tower in Riyadh, their second in the city. So this relationship is not just political. It is personal, financial, and very much transactional. Now, we can debate the ethics of it, but that is the reality. And MBS realized this very early on. In 2018, he was hosted by Trump at the White House. During a meeting, Trump pulled out a chart. It listed Saudi military purchases from the US. Trump rattled out the weapons and their price tag. Take a look.
Some of the things that have been approved and are currently under construction and will be delivered to Saudi Arabia very soon, and that's for their protection. But if you look in terms of dollars, $3 billion, $533 million, $525 million, that's peanuts for you.
So the equation is clear. MBS spends money in the United States, and in return, he gets political support from Washington. Which brings us to the second question that we're looking at. What is Trump's goal here? The biggest prize would be a deal with Israel. If Donald Trump can get Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel, it would be the deal of the century, Nobel Peace Prize stuff. But for that, MBS has some conditions, like ending the Gaza war, which Trump has already done, security guarantees, which Trump can give, and a Palestinian state, which only Netanyahu can give. A smaller prize could be a TikTok deal. A Saudi prince is apparently interested in buying it. His name is Al-Walid bin Talal. His firm already has a stake in Elon Musk's X. And now he's keen on TikTok. Again, there is one condition. He doesn't want to buy the whole thing himself. He only wants a stake if Musk or another American buys it. Basically, he's willing to pitch in. But knowing Trump, his focus will be on the big prize, on an Israel-Saudi deal. But can he force Netanyahu to accept a Palestinian state? It will be a lot harder than the Gaza deal. You see, Netanyahu was betting a lot on Trump's return. He talked about taking the fight to Iran. He talked about toppling the Iranian regime. But Saudi Arabia may not be too keen on that. They're wary of Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. In the past, the Houthis have attacked Saudi refineries. If Tehran is targeted, they could do so again. Plus, Riyadh has reset its ties with Iran. They have no reason to rock that boat. So Trump definitely has his work cut out for him. He's dealing with a vastly different West Asia from his first term. The players may be the same, but their priorities have shifted. Let's see if Trump's give and take tactic can cut through the complexities.
There are any of our citizens who are not here legally, we are always open to their legitimate return to India.
Now let's talk about Trump's outreach to India and Washington's relationship with New Delhi. There's talk of a Modi-Trump bilateral soon, as early as next month. The new Trump administration has made India a priority and put its best foot forward. We told you about this yesterday. Marco Rubio is America's new Secretary of State, basically their foreign minister, Marco Rubio. His first bilateral meeting was with S. Jaishankar, who's India's foreign minister. The US then released a statement after the meeting. It said that they want to advance economic ties with India and they want India to address illegal immigration, to stop Indians from coming illegally to the United States. And India has responded positively. It is ready to address this issue.
We have always taken the view that if there are any of our citizens who are not here legally, if we are sure that they are our citizens, we have always been open to their legitimate return to India. So I conveyed that very clearly to Secretary Rubio.
So India is striking the right tone. Trump is an immigration hawk. In his first term, he started building a wall on the US border. In his second term, he is deploying the military at the border. US troops are being mobilized. They're being sent to America's borders to stop illegal immigrants. That's how Donald Trump, that's how serious he is about it. He gave the orders himself on his first day in office. So what kind of numbers are we talking about? How many illegal immigrants enter the US in a year? Up to 500,000, according to estimates. And how many of them are from India? Just a little over 6%. So India is not the major problem here. It is countries like Mexico. The maximum number of illegal immigrants in the US come from neighbors like Mexico, which is why Donald Trump frequently targets them. And now the Americans have put together a list of the people they want to deport. And on this list, there are some 18,000 Indians. Apparently, they did not go to America legally. They did not have a valid visa. So the US wants them removed. And India is ready to bring them back. It's a small concession to unlock bigger opportunities. You see, India is clear-eyed about the bigger goals here. The groundwork is being laid for a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump. Diplomats from both sides are planning a bilateral. It could happen next month. Reports say Prime Minister Modi could even travel to Washington, D.C. for talks. They don't have a date yet, and it's still early days in the Trump presidency, so it is a bit of a moonshot. But New Delhi is working on a strategy. It is assessing a range of options to offer to Trump to win him over. And what are these options? A lot of them are centered on trade. India is considering buying more American products like whiskey, steel, and oil. India may cut duties on these goods. The import tariffs may be reduced. New Delhi is putting together a list of products, the ones which are politically significant for the Republicans. The Republican Party is Trump's party. They have a supermajority in the US Congress right now. They control both the chambers of the American Parliament. And Donald Trump controls the White House. So this party, the Red Party, has the trifecta. They represent the whole of the US government, and India wants to secure their support from all sides. So it is focusing on the products that are important for the Republicans, like bourbon whiskey and pecan nuts. Also soybean, dairy, vehicles, medical instruments, and aircraft. Concessions on these imports can lead to a trade deal. Remember, India tried to sign a trade deal during Trump's previous term. It did not work out. Now they're looking to revive the talks. Because we know one thing about Trump. He loves striking deals. So India is playing ball, trying to adopt his transactional approach by offering concessions and making demands to address its own needs, like more visas for Indians.
When it came to various regulations and processes, I also flagged some concerns which are very widespread in India about delays in visas, and the relationship is not well served if it takes that many days for people to get a visa.
So India will weigh Trump's demands against its own, like visas in exchange for support on immigration, reduced tariffs in exchange for greater market access. Prime Minister Modi's government has dealt with Trump before. They're hoping to use those learnings, focus on converging interests, and work on win-win deals. We'll keep track of how they fare. The new U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called Israel yesterday. He dialed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Rubio promised him, quote-unquote, steadfast support. He said Israel was a top priority for Trump. Basically a reassurance that there will be no hiccups in the U.S.-Israel relationship. Rubio also spoke about Israel's arch-rival Iran. He said, and I'm quoting, he looked forward to addressing the threats posed by Iran. And as if on cue, a new report came out, a report describing Iran's latest shopping spree for rocket fuel. The report cites Western intelligence officials. They say that Iran is buying 1,000 tons of a chemical called sodium perchlorate. It's an essential component for making solid rocket fuel. Iran has apparently bought this from China and it's getting ready to take the chemical home. 1,000 tons of sodium perchlorate will be transported by sea in 56 containers, split over 2 ships, the Golbon and the Jairan. Both of them are Iranian ships. They're still in Chinese waters. The Golbon is reportedly loaded up and ready to go. It will soon make a 3-week journey to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas. The Jairan will apparently depart early next month. Now, both these ships are expected to make a direct journey to Iran, so no random stops on the way. And how dangerous is the cargo that they're said to be carrying? How dangerous is 1,000 tons of sodium perchlorate? Well, this chemical is a building block. It is used to synthesize ammonium perchlorate, which is the chief component of solid rocket fuel. 1,000 tons of sodium perchlorate could theoretically produce 1,300 tons of rocket fuel. 1,300 tons. Enough to fuel over 200 mid-range Iranian rockets, or even more of the smaller ones. A few hundred missiles won't help Iran win any wars, but they can pack a punch, at least if they manage to hit their target. Iran has refused to comment on the new report. The Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. said, and I'm quoting, it wasn't familiar with this transaction. But here's what we can extrapolate. Iran seems to be keen on restocking its missile supply. It used a lot of missiles over the last year when it launched barrages at Israel. Now that a ceasefire in Gaza is in place, Tehran could be using the relative calm to shore up its arsenal. China, meanwhile, is being China. The West has long accused it of supporting its enemies. China is accused of sending dual-use technology to Russia. These are items that can be used for both military and civilian purposes, hence the name dual use. Meanwhile, Beijing is accused of extending a financial lifeline to Tehran. China buys discounted Iranian oil despite the numerous sanctions on Iran. So Beijing is no stranger to acting against Western interests. Sending rocket fuel components to Iran is just an ordinary Thursday for China. The real question is, what happens next? What happens now that the West knows what to look for? Will Israel try and stop the shipment? It knows about the 2 Iranian ships. The whole world knows that they're carrying what they're carrying now. So will Netanyahu go after them And will the US extend steadfast support as Marco Rubio promised yesterday? Stopping the Iranian ships could amount to an act of war. We just got some calm in West Asia again. Any action against Iran could take us back to square one. Is it worth it to stop Iran making a few hundred missiles, or will Donald Trump just resort to his maximum pressure tactics and dump 1 million more sanctions on Iran? We're waiting to see, and we'll be tracking this story for you as it develops.
Project. I think we'll be able to do all of the wonderful things.
It's been barely 72 hours since Donald Trump took office, and the drama has been unfolding. His first buddy is questioning his projects. I'm talking about Elon Musk. He is bashing Trump's new AI venture, claiming, and I'm quoting, the backers don't have the money. Quick primer first. On Tuesday, Donald Trump announced Stargate, a $500 billion AI venture, a joint initiative between OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and MGX. These are all private companies pooling money to build AI infrastructure. President Trump calls it the biggest project, the biggest AI project in history. It's clearly a headliner of his presidency. But his BFF Elon Musk is not so sure. And he's raising doubts about it on X. The first salvo was fired on the 22nd of January. OpenAI put up this post on their page, a post that talked about the new project. This is what OpenAI put up. Elon Musk commented on it. He said, and I'm quoting, they don't actually have the money. He's obviously referring to the funding claims. Musk says that OpenAI does not have the cash to build this, and that all this is just a grand fantasy. Soon it caught the eye of Sam Altman, who's the founder and CEO of OpenAI. But Altman tried to play it diplomatic. He extended an olive branch in a compliment. This is what his first reply said. Sam Altman saying, and I'm quoting, I genuinely respect your accomplishments and think you are the most inspiring entrepreneur of our time. This is what Sam Altman said to Elon Musk. The message was polite, but the subtext, it was loud and clear. Sam Altman respects Elon Musk's brilliance, but he thinks he's wrong. Musk is wrong. That was the message, delivered in nice words. But the civility did not last. Just an hour later, the gloves came off. Look at Altman's second reply. This is what he said, and I'm quoting, this is great for the country. I realize what is great for the country isn't always what's optimal for your companies, but in your new role, I hope you will mostly put America first. The OpenAI founder did not hold back, choosing to strike where it could sting the most. Musk's patriotism versus his business interests. This is what Sam Altman highlighted. So the battle lines were drawn, and this time it was personal. Musk did not reply to Sam Altman's posts. Instead, he unleashed his go-to weapon, a relentless storm of tweets. He dug into Sam Altman's past, bringing skeletons out of the closet. Musk's post highlighted a key point. Sam Altman was never a Trump supporter. Basically, Musk reframed the narrative, casting doubts on Sam Altman's political alignment and suggesting that Altman's loyalty to Stargate was questionable. There were so many posts that in the end, Altman had to reply. He said he did not like Trump first. He did not agree with him on everything, but he believed that Trump was good for America. That was the reply. Now, you would imagine that 24 hours and countless posts later, this feud would be settled. These are, after all, grown-up men running multi-billion-dollar companies. Surely they have better things to do with their time than bicker on social media. But no, the fight continued with a new member wading into the arena, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. He was asked about this funding feud, and he had just one thing to say. I'm quoting, "All I know is that I'm good for my 80 billion." That's what Satya Nadella said, a weird statement to make. Nadella's comments might have been earnest, but they only added fuel to the fire. After all, this is not just about technology. This is about Silicon Valley's power battle. And let's face it, ego. It has also underlined the central question here. Who exactly is funding Stargate? Where is the money coming from? This project is worth $500 billion. The initial investment will be $100 billion, raised via third-party debt, and SoftBank will be the one raising it. So that's where the money is coming from. None of that matters to Musk, of course. What's surprising, though, is how quickly he's hating on a Trump-backed initiative. Chances are it's personal. Elon Musk and Sam Altman have a long history. The two co-founded OpenAI in 2015, but Musk left the organization 6 years ago, and he hasn't stopped questioning it since. He's a vocal critic of ChatGPT. He's raised concerns about direction, leadership, and profitability. He's even dragged them to court. Musk calls Sam Altman Swindly Sam. So this new spat could be just about that. Or maybe Musk is allergic to anything that is not his idea. Or because he has his own AI company. Although honestly, it seems neither. Neither about Trump, nor about funding or AI. It is about ego, and it's fueling this year's best tech. There is more drama in America. On the country's southern borders, US officials are trying to seal it, putting up barriers and deploying troops. At least 1,500 American soldiers are being sent to the US-Mexico border to help the Border Patrol agents and to run deportation flights. The idea is to remove illegal immigrants. That is Donald Trump's top priority. He's declared a national emergency. He wants to cancel birthright citizenship, so a child born in the US to illegal immigrants does not automatically get US citizenship anymore. And this has led to panic among immigrants. Reports say many pregnant women are seeking doctor's appointments and making requests for a preterm delivery. Our next report tells you more.
Question is on the passage of the bill. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
This was the moment when it happened.
On this vote, the yeas are 263 and the nays are 156.
And with that, Trump received another weapon for his crackdown against illegal immigration. It's called the Laken-Riley Act. It's named after a Georgia nursing student. She was murdered by a Venezuelan man last year. The bill targets illegal immigrants like him. Any illegal immigrant accused of theft and violent crimes would now need to be detained. The bill had bipartisan support. It now heads to Donald Trump's table, and he could sign it into law this week itself.
It's the trick one, the pin.
Soon after he took power, Trump declared a national emergency to tackle illegal immigration. He ordered a sweeping crackdown at the US-Mexico border. The first victim of this was an app. It helped illegal immigrants request asylum in the United States. This app is no longer available. The US is now reinforcing its borders, and more barriers are being erected. More troops are being dispatched. At least 1,500 soldiers will be deployed at America's southern border now.
Securing the southern border and deporting illegal immigrants from this country. President Trump is sending a very strong message to people around this world. If you are thinking about breaking the laws of the United States of America, you will be returned home, you will be arrested, you will be prosecuted. Do not come.
Trump is sending a loud and clear message. Illegal immigrants are no longer welcome in the US. He's even challenging the definition of birthright citizenship. On Monday, Trump signed an executive order. it blocked automatic American citizenship to the children born to non-US citizens. 22 American states have challenged this order from Trump. The legal battle has pushed illegal immigrants into a limbo. Trump's moves have triggered panic among them. Pregnant women are opting for preterm deliveries. They want to beat the 20th February deadline when Trump's executive order kicks in. This immigration chaos could continue for the next 4 years because Trump isn't done yet. He's held back some of his most audacious plans. One of them involves mass deportations. While campaigning, Trump had promised to round up millions of undocumented immigrants and send them back home. This plan clearly requires more resources. Officials would need to conduct organized raids. They'll need new and bigger detention centers and, most importantly, regular flights to transport people out. Which is why perhaps Trump hasn't pushed these plans just yet. But his decisions are certainly laying the groundwork for them.
Today is the 23rd of January. Exactly 5 years ago on this day, on January 23rd, 2020, the world saw its first Wuhan virus lockdown. It was the Chinese city of Wuhan itself. It became the first city in the world to shut down because of a never-seen-before virus, which eventually crippled the entire world. It's been 5 years since. We still don't know exactly how it came about. China won't share data and it blocks access. But the US House of Representatives recently reached a conclusion. They believe the pandemic was the result of a lab leak. This was not universally accepted, though. The conclusion was made by members of the Republican Party and it was challenged by the Democrats. That doesn't really matter at the moment, though, because it's the Republicans who are in charge of the US House, the Senate, and of course the presidency. Donald Trump is the US president again, and he has a plan to try and prevent another lab leak from ever taking place. It is quite simple, really. Trump will just he'll shut down the labs. Reports say that he is working on a new executive order, one that will stop funding to labs that enhance viruses, labs that make viruses more potent. They won't get the money to keep running if Trump has his way. If you look at it from his point of view, it does make sense. Trump's Republican Party says that the Wuhan virus was an experiment gone wrong. An existing virus was enhanced, but then it escaped from a lab in Wuhan. From this lab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It was being funded by the Americans. And the Republicans are furious about that. In fact, they did not stop funding even after the pandemic erupted. The money from America to the Wuhan lab kept flowing until 2023, before the tap was finally shut. Now, Donald Trump and his team do not want a repeat of that. So they would rather shut off the funding altogether. Is this really a good idea, though? Let's put aside the potential misuse for a minute. Let's first talk about why viruses are enhanced in the first place. And this does happen all the time. Scientists regularly make viruses more potent inside labs. This is done to study their effects and to develop countermeasures. Because viruses in the wild mutate all the time, they become drug resistant on their own, or they start inflicting new symptoms. This happens naturally over a period of time. So we have to find new remedies to deal with new diseases. But when scientists enhance viruses inside a lab, it gives them a head start. It allows them to study new strains so that they can counter them when such new viruses take hold in the real world. That's the theory anyway. And that is why the funding ban is being slammed. Critics say the virus research must continue, else it will handicap American medicine. It will allow other countries to race ahead. And they do have a point. Just because the US stops funding this does not mean that other countries will. And yes, there are risks. Yes, a country could use this research to develop a bioweapon. That could very much happen. And it could happen even without American money. So at the end of the day, it's a risk versus reward situation. The reward is more scientific knowledge, better preparedness for a future pandemic, and the ability to develop cures faster. The risk is a potential lab leak and perhaps the beginning of another pandemic. It is a tough call. It seems that Trump has decided to steer clear of the danger, but can he convince other countries to do the same? And staying with the United States, Los Angeles is burning once again. A new fire has erupted. 30,000 people have been evacuated. Firefighters are battling the blaze, but strong winds are making it difficult. Meanwhile, in the Gulf Coast, there's a once-in-a-generation winter storm. States are receiving record snowfall. At least 9 people have died. So there's fire in the west and ice in the south. And it's linked to climate change. Yet America's new president does not seem to care. He believes that global warming is a hoax. Why? Because it's freezing in New York. Our next report tells you more.
California's wildfires are a grim autumnal ritual. But this year's conflagrations are apocalyptic in scale. The skies over LA glowed an eerie orange. Ash fell like confetti, and the City of Angels smoldered, dealing with the worst fires in its history. Los Angeles was barely catching a breath, but a new fire has ignited panic again. The Hughes fire erupted 72 kilometers northwest of the city. 30,000 people have been evacuated. 20,000 others have been warned.
We're not dealing with a large population and a large amount of residential homes, as we saw with those two fires. Out here, it's more sparsely populated. However, out here, we are dealing with high winds, which we also saw with the other fires, along with thick fuel bed, very receptive fuel bed, and steep topography again.
But while there's a fire in the west, there's ice in America's Gulf Coast. A rare winter storm is sweeping the south, breaking 100-year-old snowfall records. For many, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. This is a region unaccustomed to winter weather, which means they aren't equipped to face this. Highways are closed. Airports are shut. Schools are closed. People have been asked to stay off roads. There's a blizzard warning. And at least 9 people have died. Florida is recording the largest amount of snow in the state's history.
We woke up really early to try and play as much as we can. This is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing for me. I've never seen it like this here.
You know, it's kind of funny because we're used to hurricanes here in southeast Louisiana. The plan we're following is our debris pickup plan route.
The science is unequivocal. These extreme events are linked to the planet's warming. AKA, climate change is fueling this freak weather. The US climate is literally screaming. Yet America's response is to stick its fingers in its ears. Donald Trump is back in the White House, and his first plan of action was to pull the US out of the Paris climate deal. It's the world's most important effort to deal with rising temperatures, yet Trump wants out. The US will now join Iran, Yemen, and Libya as the only countries not part of this deal. Not just that, Trump has also announced a national energy emergency. This is to reverse Biden-era environmental regulations. And none of this is surprising. Trump has called climate change a hoax. He doesn't think it's man-made. He believes the weather is cold, so that means there's no global warming. He also appointed climate skeptics to his cabinet. In Los Angeles, firefighters are battling on. In the south of the country, families are struggling to stay warm. Yet Trump believes it's all a hoax and that everything is under control. It's definitely not true. His own country is burning and freezing at the same time. One can only wonder what comes next. Will there be a tipping point when humanity finally wakes up? Or will it mark the beginning of the end, when denial triumphed over action and the future was sacrificed on the altar of short-term gain? For now, the US is left with ash, snow, and a president who refuses to listen.
Let's turn to South Asia now, where the Indian and Pakistani armies are clashing, this time in a war of words. Pakistan's military has released a statement. They have made a list of accusations against India's army of duplicity, of delusion, and of political pandering. Let me repeat that last one. Pakistan's army says the Indian army is too political. What gave them that idea? Was it the repeated military coups, or the election rigging, or the meetings with politicians, or the jailing of opposition leaders? Oh wait, that is the Pakistani army. Before we go further, let me give you some context. This Pakistani statement is a reaction to India. Last week, the Indian Army chief held his annual press conference. He talked about the security situation in Kashmir. And he blamed Pakistan for it. He called Pakistan the epicenter of terror. Listen in.
As far as the J&K is concerned, that the violence level is not reducing. Here I would like to just say that the violence level is being orchestrated by the epicenter of terrorism, that is Pakistan.
That statement triggered Pakistan. So the generals probably got together in Rawalpindi and they drafted a statement. I have a copy of the statement. This is what it says. Insinuating Pakistan as the epicenter of terrorism is not only contrary to facts, but also an exercise in futility to beat the dead horse of India's default position, blaming Pakistan for indigenous reaction to state-sponsored brutality. It is hoped that civility, professionalism and norms of state-to-state behavior would guide the conduct of Indian Army's leadership, rather than pandering to political exigencies. I'm surprised they draft statements in English anymore. I thought they switched to Mandarin. Or maybe it's the Trump effect. Either way, there are two main allegations here. One, that India is unleashing brutality in Kashmir, and two, that the Indian army is pandering to political exigencies. Let's quickly look at the first one. The unspeakable brutality of the Indian state, so brutal that 2 free and fair elections were held in 1 year, both national and regional. So brutal that almost 64% Kashmiris turned out to vote, and so brutal that an opposition party is ruling the state. No rigging or repression. The people of Kashmir chose their government. Now look at Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. An energy crisis in the middle of harsh winters, no jobs for the youth, and brutal crackdowns by the police. So please spare us the lectures. The second allegation is about politicization. Look at the irony of it. When somebody accuses India, where does the reaction come from? The Ministry of External Affairs. We saw that when Canada made allegations against India. The Indian army did not respond to it. The foreign ministry did, because that is how civilian regimes work. But clearly not in Pakistan. Over there, the army responds to foreign allegations. It's an open admission of their political role, and not like it's a secret. Pakistani generals run the show in Islamabad. They meet businessmen, they run businesses, they coordinate investment policies, they talk to opposition leaders, and they fly abroad to meet allies and partners. And don't forget the coups. 3 military takeovers in 7 decades. That's the guarantee you get with Pakistan's army. You can bet on them to lose wars and topple prime ministers. If only they did their actual job. Maybe then the Taliban would not be running riot. Yet who do they accuse of politics? The Indian army. They're reminding Indian officers of civility and professionalism. Well, we've got an idea. When Pakistan surrendered in the 1971 war, India had to hold prisoners of war. Nearly 93,000 Pakistani soldiers. They were returned after nearly 3 years in India. Maybe ask them about the Indian Army's professionalism, both on the battlefield and after. The truth is, this is typical Pakistani policy. Project their failures onto India. But newsflash, India has moved on. The people of Kashmir have moved on. They're getting investments, jobs, and world-class infrastructure. Meanwhile, Pakistan is stuck in the last century. We're leagues and worlds apart now. Petty statements won't change that. Before we begin our next story, I have a question for you. What do these things have in common? Major airlines, NATO ships, and your car. They all use a GPS, a global positioning system. This is a navigation system and it tells us where the magnetic North Pole is. But now, our system needs a major upgrade. Scientists have changed their tracker because this North Pole is not where it used to be. It is on the move and it is moving with dramatic speed. Our next report tells you why.
This is our planet Earth, and this is the top of the world. In the middle of the Arctic Ocean, this is the North Pole, the geographic North Pole, also known as the true North. Now, what also remains true is that marking the North Pole is quite challenging because the area is covered by sea ice, which is constantly moving. Yes, for theoretical purposes, its geographic location is fixed. And this is crucial for us to tell us when the world is upside down. But funnily, the true north is kind of like the Pythagoras theorem. We don't use it much in day-to-day life. What we do use is the magnetic North Pole. We use it for navigation. It's on our GPS and it's different from the true north. You may remember this from primary school. The Earth's core has molten metals. They are constantly churning like a moving ball filled with water. And when the metals churn, they create a magnetic field which protects us from the sun's radiation. This is what the magnetic field looks like, and these lines converge at the top and bottom of our planet. The topmost point is the magnetic North Pole. Now, unlike the true north or our geographic north, you can't trust the magnetic north to stay in one place. And you can blame the molten metals. They keep sloshing continuously. So the magnetic lines are never static. They're always jiggling. So the northernmost point is always on the move. This pole was first discovered in the 1800s. Back then, the pole was situated in the Canadian Arctic. Then it drifted away and moved towards Russia. This was a very slow process, but now the pole is closer to Siberia than to Canada. And this recent shift has happened at a much quicker pace. The North Pole's move has accelerated and it's shocking scientists. No one knows why this pole is dramatically speeding up, but they aren't too worried. Though what bothers them is the accuracy of tracking this move. So now scientists have released a new model. It's a new tracker for the position of the magnetic North Pole. Why? To preserve the accuracy of the GPS. So now airlines, ships, militaries and even your GPS system, they're all upgrading the tracking software to keep up with the moody magnetic North Pole. Hopefully, Santa Claus has received the message. Or by next Christmas, he may be a lost clause, pardon the pun.
Our last story tonight is about elephants, specifically 5 elderly African elephants. They have been living in a Colorado zoo, and now they're at the center of a raging debate. An animal rights group has locked tusks with their zoo. They say the zoo is harming the elephants, that they have imprisoned the animals, and now the animals are showing signs of trauma, chronic stress, and even brain damage. The group wants the elephants to be rescued, so it has filed a petition in court, saying that the elephants have a right to freedom. They are self-aware, they are empathetic, they learn, they communicate, they socialize, they're a lot like humans, so the group says they deserve personhood, meaning the elephants should have rights like humans do. Rights to existence, to freedom, and to challenge their detention. Now the verdict is out, and Colorado's highest court says Not really. They say the elephants do not have a legal standing. They cannot leave the zoo because an elephant is not a person. Basically, the aged animals will stay where they are, owing to the fact that they're elephants, not humans. Now, this verdict may seem like common sense. Humans are animals, but non-human animals are not humans. It is a tongue twister, but it's one of those kindergarten Venn diagrams. So birds, animals, rivers, trees, they cannot have legal rights. Right? Well, again, not really. In recent years, there has been growing support for personhood, not just for animals, but for all things nature. And you may find this surprising, but such initiatives are being pursued in 44 countries, from India to Uganda and Bolivia to Brazil. Many legal initiatives have recognized animals. Like in 2019, an orangutan was given personhood. She became Argentina's first non-human person. Some cases have recognized the rights of rivers, like in India, where the river Ganga is a legal person since 2017. And more recently, the Maranon River in Peru. It gained legal rights last year. Some cases defend the rights of mountains, like in 2017, when New Zealand declared Mount Taranaki a legal person. Even forests have legal rights, like in Ecuador. In 2008, they became the first country to change the constitution. They state that nature has the same rights as people. Since then, India, Brazil, Mexico, Ireland, and many others have joined this club. They give legal rights to nature in their constitutions. But why? Why do trees, rivers, or chimps need legal rights? Well, the argument is quite simple. They need these rights to be protected. Because what are rights? They are standards. They recognize individuals. They protect your dignity. So when nature gains personhood, it gains liberty rights. And in most cases, this has tangible benefits. Look at Ecuador's forests. When they got personhood, they were protected from deforestation and mining. Or take the example of the orangutan. Her name is Sandra. She lived in an Argentine zoo for 2 decades. She was in a solitary enclosure. Her only daughter was taken away and sold to a park in China. Sandra was depressed. She was as good as a prisoner. But when she gained legal rights, she gained freedom. She was moved to a sanctuary in the United States. There are many such instances, but of course not everyone is on board, sometimes because it is weird to give a river the liberty of a human, and often because this legal practice is relatively new. There are a lot of loopholes. Can nature get political representation? Can they sue humans? Do they have intellectual rights? In fact, we saw this debate in action about a decade ago. You may remember this, the monkey selfie. A monkey took this picture on a man's phone, and later this man was sued, not by the monkey, of course, it did not care, but by an animal defense group. They blamed the man for making money from a photograph that was apparently owned by a monkey. So there are complicated questions, but a growing call for answers. Most experts support the wild personhood. They're increasingly advocating to give legal rights to nature, to tackle the climate breakdown, to reduce biodiversity loss, and to see ourselves as part of nature, not outside of it. It is too soon to tell which side would win this man versus wild. But we can start by acknowledging the elephant in the room. It's been a big month for Pakistan's space program. Yes, it actually exists. They have a space program. They launched their own indigenous satellite last week, the EO-1. It was launched from a Chinese facility in the Gobi Desert. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was all praise. He called it a leap towards progress. But internet users don't seem to care about that. They're focused on its shape. Pakistan's satellite resembles a water tank, the one you see over houses and apartments. And cue the jokes. It was merciless trolling for what was actually a big moment for them.
सारी दुनिया चांद पे जात है, हम सीधा सूरज पे चाप।
नहीं नहीं बेटे, सूरज तो बहुत गर्म होता है।
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Thai couples say "I do" as the country legalizes same-sex marriage. Shanghai celebrates the upcoming Lunar New Year with snake lanterns, and thousands queue in Sydney to see a rare corpse flower bloom. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1950, Israel proclaimed Jerusalem as its capital. All branches of the Israeli government are located in Jerusalem. The city is also claimed by Palestinians as the capital of their future state. Most of the world does not recognize Israel's claim. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.